So hello everyone, Mr. Brad Crawford today in UA studio again, and our talk for the previous time was a little bit different. We were in a different state. Right now the United States support military and intelligence for Ukraine was resumed with the cost of ceasefire talks. And today we would like to ask you about what's happening on the ground with the morale after this resumption of US aid.
Mhm. Well, I thank you for having me back again. It's always great to talk to you. So, with your question, uh, we had some serious situations during the breakdown in our aid and the intelligence and all the extra programs that we were supposed to have with the United States. Uh, it's not a secret. Uh, we've had some serious setbacks because of that, especially in the Kursk direction and a lot of the areas that operationally we're trying to support our troops against the Russians. Uh, one thing of notice, one thing of value that I've seen is definitely during these times where we had to break down military aid and intelligence aid, the Russians took full advantage of that situation. They definitely started picking up their offensive operations and moving against our forces at a very tremendous rate. And the strange thing about it, if you notice, is that during that time, it was about 3 or 4 hours after officially the rug was kind of pulled out from under us. And it seemed like the Russians had some pretty intricate knowledge of our limitations during that time and definitely used them against us. So I would say that from our last conversation that we had, we definitely did notice some serious complications because of these ramifications of this non-delivery of aid and intelligence. Um, I thank my administration for resuming the military aid and also the intelligence sharing. Uh, I think we can use this as a very good example of what can happen if they decide in the future to do this again. I think that it's very, very important that they continue both the military aid and the intelligence sharing operations because uh, it definitely helps the Ukrainian military provide the resources and the tools they need to fight and survive on the battlefield.
And what do the Gunsmoke veterans and new trainees, new recruits think of this situation? Are they encouraged, or they have some, worries about future possible second shutdown in military aid and intelligence?
Well, I think when I heard in the beginning that this was on the table, uh, I really didn't believe that it was possible. I didn't believe that, especially with everything that NATO and America and our Western allies have done for Ukraine over the last 3 years. I didn't think it was possible. I thought that it was rumblings or maybe politics, but when it actually happened, I was pretty shocked about it because it was just inconceivable to me. Uh, uh, Ever since 2014, and even before that, Ukraine has been a pivotal partner and ally of the United States. And it's also been a pivotal and powerful ally of the Western world. And when I seen this happen, to me, it was definitely something that was I never thought I'd ever see it. Uh,
Mm.
um, but now that it has happened, a lot of people talk about these issues. They talk about, okay, well, what if it happens again? You know, uh, I think that this probably will not happen again. I don't think it's going to be used as I guess you can say, a bargaining chip
Mhm.
for future negotiations. I think, again, as I stated before, that we have seen that it has disastrous consequences, and I don't believe the current administration is going to try to do that again.
Yeah, I've read some newspaper articles about cautiousness of some NATO allies of the United States, in particular Canada and Portugal, about F-35s. So the new jet from United States company Lockheed Martin, and they are looking for alternatives, possible alternatives, because in a glimpse, the United States have turned off the radar stations on Ukrainian F-16s, and they were of a Dutch origin, of Belgium, Norway, and Denmark, so Danish planes. They were not transferred from the United States, but in one moment they were able to make those planes blind from the decision of the United States. So I've heard that those partners in NATO are worried that that situation as with Ukraine could happen to them, and they consider buying something different than F-35s.
Yes, I've read a lot of news articles lately about, say, for instance, we talk about our NATO allies, some of our allies that have wanted to buy F-35s and other types of pieces of equipment. And they're actually talking about buying F-16s from other European countries now because they want to have the ability for these weapon systems to work. They don't want to have the ability for certain parts of functionality or technology in these specific types of weapon systems to go down at a certain period of time. Um, I think we've definitely seen that over the last couple of days that not only has some of the trust from our allied partners eroded, but also when it comes down to it, our military industrial complex. Uh, a lot of our allies now are starting to consider uh, domestic production now. They're starting to consider building up their own military industrial complexes to fill the needs of their own national defense. And I think that the issues that have arisen from a lot of these situations that we've seen in the last couple of days have caused that issue.
Mhm. So, from this question, from this topic, out goes another one. The ceasefire talks, that compromise that Ukraine made to resume military aid. What do you feel? What do you feel about these talks as a veteran of Ukraine right now? You fought this war together with other Ukrainian soldiers. You trained a lot of them. What I'm interested is what do you and they feel about these ceasefire talks? Is this some encouraging news, or on the other hand, it is morale under boosting?
Well, I think it's very encouraging news. Like I've stated before in past interviews, Ukraine is on the cusp of trying to get peace with Russia. However, with the current situation, we can see that our Russian counterparts are having a hard time grasping that concept and actually trying to get peace on their own. Uh, um, we had a very solid ceasefire agreement ready to go to be signed for a 30-day ceasefire with Russia, as we all know. Uh, However, the Russian Federation stalled these talks for many days, and are still stalling these talks now. And also the demands of the Russian Federation. They talk about not being able to train, so they don't want our troops to train.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want us to continue mobilization. They don't want military aid of any kind coming into Ukraine. Well, I would say this to the Russian Federation. During a 30-day ceasefire, are you going to stop training? Are you going to stop mobilization? Are you going to stop building weapons in your military industrial complexes? I don't think so.
Of course, no.
So the question with that would be, how are you going to ask Ukraine to do those things if you're not going to do those things yourself? Um, Other issues that have arisen. They've talked about paths forward to peace, where they want us to give up crucial territory, like all of Kherson, all of Zaporizhzhia, okay, Luhansk, Donetsk. All right. Uh, those are no starters. Uh, President Zelensky has already said many times that concession of Ukrainian territory in any way, shape, or form is non-negotiable. So what we see during these peace discussions is the Russian Federation trying to put terms and limitations that are unachievable. And then when you watch the Russian news media, they're the first ones to say, well, Ukraine isn't striving for peace. Well, I would hate to say that's a falsehood, because we have striven for peace. We have gone and actually done these agreements and actually made a peace plan. If anyone at this point is not serious about these negotiations, it's the Russian Federation. And our current administration should be looking very hard at this and saying to themselves, who is the real aggressor here? Who is the real person who does not want peace? And I would say without a reason, without a doubt, it's the Russian Federation. It's not Ukraine.
Okay, so going to the third question. You have seen trainees from different brigades, as far as I know, and the state of these brigades, the psychological state. We hear from time to time from mainstream media that the situation on the ground in Ukraine is catastrophic, there are no recruits, that the front line is crippling, even before the stop in US military aid, there were such publications. But you see the recruits on the ground, you see more. From what that you can say, is the situation really so dire as those media portray, or it is manageable as we can in Ukraine feel, because in most of the cities and places we are really safe except for Russian missiles and drones?
Well, I'd say the current state of the Ukrainian military, the morale is actually very good, and our training programs are constantly being enhanced to make our soldiers more combat effective. Uh, Usually, when we talk about this issue, the biggest issue that we have is equipping our forces. I know this has been told by President Zelensky. He said that we had a goal of equipping 12 combat brigades in the Ukrainian Army fully, and having a brand new force developed. The issue was not the training of the Ukrainians or any of those issues. It was the equipping of those brigades. We could barely get uh, enough equipment, weapons, and technology to equip 2 brigades. Uh, when it comes down to the training and actually working on the ground with the Ukrainian soldiers, I've definitely said this before. They're very motivated to defend their country. They're very motivated to learn and to train. And I know on the news, there's a lot of articles sometimes that you read about feelings of maybe guys not being motivated or being conscripted or forced to fight. Uh, with the locations that I go and I train these guys, that I rarely ever see that, ever. I see motivated men that are ready, willing, and able to fight, and especially in the frontline areas. Um, Ever since 2022, I haven't really seen a big drop in morale or motivation. It's always been the same. Of course, we've been fighting this war for about the past three years now, and it's a hard war. But our men stand ready to fight, and it motivates me as an instructor when I have these men and we train very hard and they're motivated and ready to go and want to learn. So, answer to your question, I would say uh, we're not a motivated army. Our morale is fairly high. We have the courage and the commitment to continue to fight.
So you're telling me that still there are some problems with, of course, there are problems with equipment, but not with human potential, not with morale. So in case if Ukrainian army and Ukrainian people will really get those promised already weapons, because you know of the security guarantees that were promised to Ukraine in 1990s after the Budapest Memorandum, I believe that this have to be done. This has to be done. Ukrainian brigades to be armed with the industrial potential, maybe of Europe, even because they are rebuilding itself. So you say that equipment is the greatest problem right now. I mean, the steel on the ground.
Yes, yes. The biggest problem with the organization of our forces is just getting the equipment from our Western partners so that we can implement these into these brigades.
Mm.
I've always said this to my Western counterparts and people in the West. Uh, you just need to arm the Ukrainians and give them what they need. The Ukrainians have never once asked for one foreign soldier, one U.S. soldier, one NATO soldier, one Western Army soldier to come in here to Ukraine to help them fight. They've only asked for the tools to fight. And
Mm.
as I say before, in World War II, Winston Churchill said the same thing. He says, "Give us the tools, and we'll finish the job." And if the Western world gave Ukraine the tools, they would finish the job. I guarantee it.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Bradley. That's the final question will be, I believe, the headline of our interview. You are very inspiring in what you're doing. Thank you for being with us on UATV today. And I hope that we will talk with you even again later.
Thank you. It'd be a pleasure to be back. And I thank you very much.
Thank you again.